Hello, everybody, and welcome into another Flyers news and rumors here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, as always, joined by Justin Giampietro. Justin, how's it going? We got the Flyers are in a slump, not as bad as the Canucks, but they're on a 6-game losing streak, including the OTL. And they have been blown out actually quite a few times for this last. They actually are like the Canucks, I guess. So I mean, allowing a lot of goals. How's it going?
Yeah, I was just about to say, are we that far away at this
Not
point?
really.
I mean, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but with Vladar being hurt, I mean, it's the same thing as last year. It is a carbon copy of what this team was like last year when they were losing games. They can't make a save, and when you can't make a save, things just get sloppy, and they've been sloppy. And I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure we'll get into it. But yeah, this is definitely their worst hockey. It's not just goaltending. It is the entire team is not playing well.
Yeah. They're not scoring goals. I mean, you're looking at it too. It's like they've scored the most they've scored is 3 over the last bunch of games, over the whole streak, actually. And I mean, allowing 6 goals to the Rangers, 6 goals to the Penguins, 5 to the Sabres, 5 to the Lightning, 7 to the Lightning. It's a pretty big slump. Like I say, their worst of the season, I would say. How are they going to offset this? They're still in the playoff mix. They haven't fallen completely. They have fallen out of the playoffs, but they are still within striking distance. Can they do it, especially with, like you say, Vladar hurt? Goaltending's back to, Sam Ersson, who has been kind of an up and down. We've discussed that before. He has now been thrust back into the starter's role and hasn't really dealt with it very well. It's not only on him, of course. So when you're allowing that many goals, there's the defense that's involved. Can they do it? Can they get back into this playoff mix again?
Well, that's the thing, right? I am not assuming that this losing streak is just going to magically end against Vegas in Vegas next game. If I'm going to be honest, I think they're going to lose that game. I mean, Vegas is a really good team. They're one of the best teams. And you're a Philly team in a slump. Yeah, I just don't expect you to get a win there. And then you play in Utah. They've been pretty good recently. They beat Dallas recently. So that could be a tough game. And then you're in Colorado. They are an amazing team this year. That is an understatement. They are maybe one of the best teams ever to this point. So, I mean, let's just say you win 1 and you drop 2 in regulation, I think that's kind of fair. You're kind of battling it at that point. Playoffs, you got to go on a winning streak. Point blank period, you have to win a lot of games. Because again, it's been really tight this year. And, there are some teams that are just going to come out of the woodworks and get wins. Teams like Florida, they're out of it right now. I mean, would we be shocked if Matthew Tkachuk comes back and they just start winning a lot of games? Yeah. No, we wouldn't be shocked. So you're kind of battling that too. And a team like Toronto even has played very well recently. So, 90 points, let's say, that may not be enough to get in. You may need 92, 93, right? And right now, they're not even on pace for that. So if you drop, like I said, 1 of your next or 2 of your next 3 games, it's a math game now. And I did the math a little bit. So I assumed that they win 1 and then they lose 2 in regulation. Again, I think that's pretty fair. These are 3 very tough games. Let's say for the next 22 games, they put up 30 points, which was their best stretch of the year. They put up 30 points across 22 games. And, that's like 110 plus point pace. That was their peak this year. Even if you have that and you maintain your points percentage for the rest of the season across the last 10 or so games, you would be a 95 6-point team. And again, that's assuming that you go on this crazy run for 22 or so games. So again, you're really battling this. You have to turn it around. It may seem oh, they're a couple wins away and then they're back in it. That's not exactly how it works, right? No. So, again, at this point, I am kind of doubting that they're going to make the playoffs. I mean, if you look at Hockey Stats' model, they have 15% odds. It's not very good. They had them at, I think, around 60 something, like early January. So, yeah, you're going to have to go on a crazy winning streak here. And I don't know if they're capable of that because their biggest win streak was 3 games. Of course, they have put up a lot of points, like they were getting overtime losses and stuff like that in the mix. So they were always competitive. Even if they were losing, they were getting a point here and there. I don't know. Like, you got to win a lot of games, and we'll see if they can do that. I think the break would help them do that, the Olympic break, kind of a reset. But everyone's getting a reset. So, again, we never know. But, it's going to be tough, I think, to rebound, especially if you don't magically turn it around against juggernauts like Vegas and Colorado.
Well, you look at Colorado, they just lost their first game in regulation at home to the Predators of all teams. But, the Predators scored 7 goals on them or some empty netters in there. But that was their first one. And we are past the halfway mark of the season. That was their first regulation loss. I think that's a pretty tough building to win in. That's probably an understatement. But yeah, they're 5 points out of the playoffs as of this moment. You're looking at the Sabres in the second wildcard spot at 57 points. It is tough. And like you say, a winning streak, yeah, you can get on a winning streak, but you have to hope that the other teams go on losing streaks then. Because they just keep winning at the same rate, you're not going to make up ground at all. It's really tough. And like we were saying about this, the Eastern Conference being tight, it's starting to spread out now. When you're looking at the Rangers last in the East right now with 48 points, they are now, 9 points out of a playoff spot. So it is getting to be a bit of a stretch when you're looking at it. It's not as tightly packed as it used to be. So, it is really tough to make up ground once you get to this point of the season. We'll see if they can do it. Prediction quickly. Where do you think they'll finish in the standings? Right now they are 6th, past the wild card spot, I guess, when you're looking at it, with 52 points. They're kind of actually getting close to the bottom when you're looking at 48 to 52. They might still end up being a good draft pick. We'll talk about the draft in a second. Where do you think they'll finish?
Well, this is impossible to predict because, again, as we mentioned, it's kind of tight, even though it's separating. You mentioned the Rangers are at 48 points. That is not that much of a gap. And, with the Flyers losing streak, they're closing in. There was separation. Now they're closing in. And I was looking earlier today as we're recording, their 52 points is only 2 ahead of Nashville, and Nashville is in 26th in the NHL. So that's a 2-point gap that's separating you from kind of borderline playoffs. I think 3rd in the Metro isn't exactly 5 points. They may be a little bit closer to the playoffs, but either way, they are around the middle of the standings. You could drop 10 spots if you lose your next 3. That is not crazy. So again, it's very hard to predict at this point. But you also have to consider, right, that Vladar got hurt, and he is basically your MVP. If he is anything less than what he was prior, I don't see you, maintaining your current pace, 90 points-ish they're on pace for. I don't see you even doing that. Because again, this guy has been absolutely phenomenal. He has been, I wouldn't call him a Vezina winner, but he hasn't been that far. He has been very, very good for this Flyers team. And when he's not in the net, they struggle. Look at their streak, their losing streak. They've been allowing a lot of goals, right? So if you don't have that goaltending mojo, things could get ugly very fast. If I were to project them somewhere, I would say maybe they're 10th, 11th, maybe even 12th worst in the standings, kind of similar to what they were in 2024. Remember that collapse? They were, in the mix for the playoffs all year. Then they go on this losing streak at the end of the year, very end of the year, and all of a sudden they're picking 12th, but they did trade back to 13th. So I could see that happening. I could see them being even worse because, again, Vladar, if he is not the same guy, I mean, I would maybe expect him to be. I don't know, because like the injury, I don't know the severity of it. I mean, he should be back soon. That's what we know, but you don't know how that's going to affect him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's impossible to say where they'll finish, but I do think that they could get a kind of a high pick. I mean, it's not as crazy as it sounds. Again, if Vladar is just not the exact same guy, they could fall.
And it is pretty crazy to think about. We were talking at one point, they were second in the East, right? And it's kind of really crazy. Looking back now, they are far away from there. But yeah, that's what streaks do. When you go on losing streaks, winning streaks, look at the Sabres. You go on the really long winning streak, and now you're right back in the thick of it, right? They could do it. I mean, like you say, but the thing is Vladar has to come back and be the same type of goaltender. That's not a guarantee. With different injuries goaltenders go through, I know that very well in Vancouver. You don't know how well they'll come back from it, or if they'll go out again. And that's the thing, right? So we'll see what happens for the rest of the season with him as well. All right, it could be an exciting time for the Flyers again, having a high pick in this draft. It won't be as high as getting Porter Martone, but they might end up in a top 15 spot around there, which there's some really good prospects in that range. Who are you kind of looking at this point, very early on, going into this coming draft?
Yeah, it is very early, so I don't want to go too deep into specifics, but I will go into positions, right? Because what do the Flyers need? They need centers, obviously. That's kind of, I think, the assumption for a lot of people is that they're going to take center no matter what, because they do still need centers. I mean, yes, they drafted Lachenko. Yes, they drafted Nesbitt. They still need centers, like point blank period. They got to get some. But I'm not sure that you want to do that in this class. It's very defense heavy, and they still do need defense. They do need that number one defenseman or just a top pairing guy. And I think you can land that even if you aren't, top five or bottom five in the standings, picking top five. Like I'm not certain that those are the only top pairing defensemen on the board. I really like this defensive class. I mean, for me, the dream would be Chase Reed. I think he's going to go top five at this point. He's an OHL guy. I just assumed that the Flyers would pick him going into this year because he's an OHL guy. We know the Flyers love their OHLers, and it just would have made sense. He's also committed to MSU, so it would have been perfect. But he has played himself out of the Flyers' range, definitely. Yeah. He has been absolutely fantastic this year, and to me, he looks like a number one type defenseman. Again, that would be the dream, but it's not at this point. It's not likely. To me, I've been looking at Ryan Lynn. He is, to me, pretty similar to Jamie Drysdale, a little bit of a worse skater, not as explosive, maybe has a little bit more offensive upside. And when you talk about a guy like that, a smaller defenseman, right, they tend to fall a bit. So you might get a more talented guy versus where you're picking. Now, the problem there is that the Flyers, I mean, they passed on Zeev Buium in 2024, a smaller defenseman. They are not exactly similar, but their height, that does come into play. So we'll see if the Flyers maybe go against the grain there to get a potential top four defenseman, because they do need another one. And I think Lynn can be that type of guy. Again, I won't go into a lot of specifics, but I do like this D class. I think the Flyers can really upgrade there. Down the middle, there are three guys specifically that I'm looking at that I think can be, top six, maybe number one centers. I will say that I haven't watched all of the European guys, so it's still early. It's January, so I haven't been familiarized with everybody. But three guys I'm looking at are Tynan Lawrence. I think he's the best center in this class. He would be a great guy to get. Viggo Bjork He is Swedish. The Flyers don't usually dabble there with their first round picks, but we'll see. He's a smaller guy, but I really like the upside there. I think he could fall a little bit because of his size and maybe be in the Flyers range if they don't really turn it around this year and be in that playoff bubble. And the last guy is Caleb Malhotra. He is the son of Manny Malhotra. You know him well as a Canucks fan. He is coaching in that organization. So, yeah, he's not exactly like his father. I like his defensive instincts, but he's got an offensive ceiling for sure. So, if you can get a player like that too, any of those three guys, I'm really, really into. But again, the defense, I think there's a lot of quantity and quality there versus the centers. So you may want to pivot from the centers. It's not ideal, but again, you just have to. I am a fan of best player available. I think the Flyers have shown that they're willing to take best player available. Sometimes they've taken position, like Luchenko and Nesbitt. I think those were more position and not best player available. But then you look at Porter Martone, a winger. I think he was the best player available, and they notably took him over James Higgins, who is a center, right? So that says a lot. Like, they are willing to take best player available. It just depends. So again, we'll see where they go. We got 5 months left, so we don't know anything. We don't even know where they're going to be picking. We don't even know if they're going to have their first round pick. Maybe they trade it. I don't know. But yeah, that's just like a kind of a preview. Get to know this class a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they could end up trading their first round pick for some help to make the playoffs or do something like that. I don't know. I don't think that's the right move, but we'll of course talk about that closer to the trade deadline as well. But it isn't a good draft class. I mean, everyone's saying there's not a generational player, even though I think Gavin McKenna was probably classified as that not that long ago. But it seems like that shine has gone off of him a little bit. They're two really solid guys at the top. I mean, I'd say maybe there's three with Verhoff included in there. But Flyers won't be getting a shot at those guys, I don't think, unless they take a drastic fall down the standings. But yeah, it is going to be interesting to see where they pick. And like you mentioned in the article too, they might end up being like the Islanders and get the first overall pick, even though they finish closer to the playoffs. But that's a lucky thing, right? So that's winning the lottery big time. All right. Well, thanks, Justin, for coming on, as always, talking Flyers and the season as it keeps going on. And hopefully we're talking more about closer to the playoffs maybe when we're talking next. But they have to get through a few really tough teams coming up. And we'll talk about that on our next one. But make sure to check out everything at thehockeyrace.com. We got great articles throughout the site. We've got the Substack newsletter if you haven't subscribed to that. And then, of course, all of our other videos on the YouTube channel and our other articles on the website as well. But until our next video, we will see you next time.